Hello. Thanks for stopping by, bro. This is the hardest raid in Classic right now, so out of the four, technically five or six that we have, three of them are just single bosses. And then three of them are actual zones with many bosses. This is the hardest content in Classic. Can't hear my people on Discord, can you? They're being loud and rambunctious, but I gotta make sure that nobody can hear them. Oh, it must be muffling through. No, it's just some chiptunes I have going. It's like royalty-free stuff. Just so you don't have to listen to the like 5% music I have turned on in-game. Can't really make it any lower than it currently is. So I hope it's not too loud. Compared to my voice anyway. Okay, cool. I think my biggest learning curve is going to be learning the two different push-to-talk buttons. It'll be a little boring for the next 20 minutes. Gotta wait for the raid invites to go out. And then Sky is a slow build. Lots of preparation goes into it because honestly, in Classic this was the hardest content. People would come back to do this after the Kunart came out and the level cap increased because they revamp all these old raids at some point in the timeline history. So like you gotta come back for your epics and stuff. But if you could have did it in Classic time, some of those items last like forever. Like most of the gear I have is like that. I'll make sure to show off the only bow worth shooting in Classic once we get in there. And it's still pretty pathetic damage-wise compared to like my melee or any other real class. Rangers really are a joke, but I love my Ranger. I could sometime beat other DPS classes. Just all works out to how often you're hitting. If you see random people dropping out of the sky in the background, that's because that's where the plane of sky leads out. You just get pooped out into the ocean. We're literally going above where we are. There goes another one. Poop. It's up there somewhere in the code. Oh, somebody knows the slime. But I don't know them. You said slime though, so it's gotta be from the group. Can't be from this old 25-year-old dusty MMO. Alright, then I have a 50-50 chance of knowing who you are. It was either you or Jamie. As soon as you said weed. I know it wasn't my friend Leslie because I know his name. You must have got some crappy email like, Dennis is streaming. Yeah, it's copyright-free chiptunes. Pull it up on the YouTube. It's a lot better than the in-game MIDI soundtracks. Another 10-15 minutes before this stuff gets rolling. Probably end up streaming the whole raid since I'm going to be glued to this seat until 1 a.m. Eastern. Thereabouts. Sometimes we go to 2 or 3 in Sky. Sky is the longest, but yields the greatest rewards. Gonna see some riveting gameplay if you're not familiar with EQ. So exciting, this 25-year-old game. But it's addicting. Oh no, I'm gonna be raiding on this ranger right in front of you here, Thatch. That's my main character, my level 50 ranger. I've been playing him since October. No, maybe. Somewhere around last year. I made a Necro first, then ended up falling in love with this terrible ranger. He outleveled the Necro and became my main character. It's just I got better gear on him since the last time I like showed him off. And I can turn into a night elf or a dark elf, which is really cool. No, this is not. No Sleep is a bard I made. No Sleep till Brooklyn. He's only like level 28 or something. That is a Mistwalker, yeah, and the Sky Sword. BIS weapons. Yeah, of course. I'd pronounce that, but I think it's impossible. Adriorn? I just call it Rocky's girlfriend, you know? Hey, Adrian. This ranger's best in slot, essentially. I mean, I can get the Sky earring, but it's not better than the earrings I'm currently. It's like a side grade at best. Doing Sky because I love the thrill of the fight, and I want more DKP to spend on stuff that in Kunark and beyond. Yeah. I was saying earlier, this is the raid is actually right above us in the code. So when people leave the raid, they get pooped out of the sky into the ocean there like a big toilet. You can occasionally see them from other guilds. Other people are raiding in their own instances version of this. This is not how it was in Classic. In 1999, people actually had to get a wizard to teleport them into Sky. It was the only way in. And the only way out was to jump off the islands that are up there. Like the Plane of Sky, it's not a rolling plane, it's just these floating islands that you progress through. And you have to get keys every single time you kill a mob and use that key to get to the next island. So everybody in your raid would have to do it. Now they've changed it here on this server. Now when you get a key, it's permanent for your character instead of having to do it every single week. And now we just collect ourselves and we click that book right here. Once we're in a raid, we click this book and it teleports us up for free. And we don't have to compete with anybody else in the world. In the real game, like in the original game, everyone was competing against each other in the same zone. So it could be like a couple of hundred people just up there fighting to kill things before you could. This is a very toned down version of all that. This is an old man version. One that respects your time. So I don't know if you're familiar with Quarm. You cannot equip the Afridi weapons on Quarm like you could in Classic. So if you bring it to him, he makes it equipable by turning it into a polished version, but then you can't use that version on the quest. Because some of those Afridi weapons were extremely good, even at their base level. Yeah, so for whatever reason, Secrets, the creator of the server, The weapons were able to be disarmed in Sky, but the way that the instances work is if something touches the ground, it automatically gets deleted because you can't drop items in the instances. So people were like disarming the Afridi Lords and losing these great items, so they made them no drop so that they couldn't be disarmed either, and they disabled disarm in the instances. But then people were complaining like, hey, we used to be able to equip these and some of them are actually really good. So they went back and added this. I don't even think he's implemented yet. He's here, but I don't think you can do it yet. I think we're waiting for the next content patch before you can do that. Like right now, I think he eats whatever you give him, which is bad. I don't really keep up with that stuff because as a ranger, I don't have to care about the base items. But for like monks and somebody else was definitely using the Afridi weapons. We're crazy about the base Afridi weapons. My experience is very shallow when it comes to EverQuest in general. I played in '99, but I was a kid. I capped a cleric, but very late. I think maybe Kunark had been out already by the time I did that. And I didn't know what I was doing, so I never raided or anything. I had no concept of the game back then. And then, 25 years I skipped. I tried P99 for a little bit. Wasn't my bag. And then when Quarm came out, I was watching some streamers, and I was like, this is definitely something I want to get in on the ground. So day one, I was creating a character. And I didn't take it very seriously because at the time there was no such thing as like instances were not going to be raids were not going to be instanced or anything like that. So it was very looking like, oh, this is going to be a poop sock server where only the people who have a colossal amount of free time and like getting woken up at 3 a.m. to kill a dragon are going to get any loot. But then they were like, oh, we're going to do raids on a schedule. So you sign up with your guild and then you have this allotted week and nobody else can kill a boss. And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool, but still random. You're only going to kill like one boss every 9 weeks. So then they were like, screw it, we're doing instances completely. Your guild will be able to kill the bosses as much as you can. And I was like, alright, you got me. You finally got me. I will say this.
Thatch invited to group.
If you want to do a mage, serious or not serious, so next month, the Ixars get released at standalone. They are stuck in Kunark. Other people who are not Ixars cannot go to Kunark, and they cannot leave Kunark. After that, July 1st is the day that they are released into the world. There are going to be a few hundred players in various level ranges, and that would probably be the best time to start a new character. Like, you could have this whole next month, you can have all of June as a head start, but you're going to be leveling with a ton of other characters come July. Because some people aren't going to take advantage of the head start. But July is also the day that Kunark releases, so, like, at least my guild leader, he's like, we are raiding day one. You can level in your off time. So we're going to throw ourselves at the wall day one on some of those dragons, so I won't even be leveling this tune until the weekend of the first week. I'm really excited though. Kunark brings out so many extra zones to level in, and it stretches the content so much. Somebody's planting mushrooms here. Looks like we're just getting rolling here. Invites are starting to go out. Sky is special. Normally we'd be buffing, but once you click into Sky, you lose every single buff you got. So it's worthless to waste time and mana outside the raid instance. We go through the same rigmarole every week when it comes to, like, if we have new players, they're going to need keys, so we just ask everybody, like, hey, who needs keys? And then we know how many mobs on per island we're going to kill. There's a boss on each island. Sometimes they drop keys, sometimes they don't, but the trash mobs on each island have keys. And at least on this server, you need to get each key once, and then once you turn it in, you get it added to an actual key ring, and you can delete the key. But in the original version of the game, you needed to do this weekly. It's called key corpsing or corpse keying. I don't really know the full skinny on it, because like I said, I was a kid when that stuff was a thing. But I hear it was a real pain in the butt. So you just slash keys and it tells you for each one of these islands which ones I have here. I'm keyed all the way through. I've cleared all this content with my guild. We have Sky down to a pretty good science. We don't wipe anymore. In fact, there's 2 different bosses in here that you can kill multiple times per week, and you could do it in succession, so you could just rapid fire these things off. One's called the Spearrock Lord, which is a giant bird, and then the other one is a sister. She's a giant genie woman, and she's the second to last island, so she drops really great loot. And if you're working efficiently, you can kill her multiple times, like 6 to 10 extra times. And that's not like an exploit or anything like that. That's just how the game works. There's a special NPC that spawns, and he's up for 15 minutes. And you can respawn a boss as many times as you can in that 15 minutes. So if you can kill it, and as the very OP class ranger, my specialty is taking death touches, so if you guys tune in later, or if you stick through, you'll get to watch me die a bunch of times, and lose permanent experience, because that's what rangers do in Classic. It ain't much, but it's honest work. I'm not sure. I'd have to check. I'm looking at the audio mixer though, and it seems like it's hitting good levels. Maybe I'm just not keeping it close enough to my mouth, or I'm speaking softly because my child needs to sleep. Is it really hard to hear me, or just like you said sometimes? I don't know. I'd have to check my OBS to see, but maybe I can crank the decibels up or something. I just don't want to fiddle with it right this moment since I'm getting started with the raid. But I'll try to speak a little louder just to even it out. Alright, now that I'm in, I'm just gonna bug these people for buffs. This is Island 1, it's got fairies on it. They have this incredibly annoying sound wave that plays over and over and over again. So much so that I went into the files and deleted the MIDI track that plays when they're close to you. It's like a sparkly sound. Very, very annoying. So for like necromancers and mages, your pets aren't normal in the Plane of Sky if you've never been. If you're a necromancer, they turn into little purple wisps. And if you're a mage, they turn into female genies. Or djinns, whatever you want to call them. Pretty interesting. I had no idea what was going on the first time I was in here. I was like, where'd all the skeletons go? And all the clumps of various elements. So the way that raid buffing works in Classic is there's no real system wrapped around it. So you just kind of learn what classes have buffs that are important to you, and at least the way that this guild works is structurally you just kind of whisper, you send a tell to the person who you need the buffs from, give them a moment. If they don't do it, you move on to the next class that can do that for you. But it's really your responsibility to learn what buffs are important to you, and you just, after a couple of raids, you kind of have it all down pat. There are some classes that have buffs that are very similar that cross over. Like you can get either or, instead of, like, if you don't have a shaman, you may be able to get some of those buffs elsewhere. But shaman is really the buffer. You really need a shaman in every raid. You need multiple because they produce a lot of buffs. Like I get specifically 4 buffs from a shaman compared to like a cleric's 1 buff. It's different for everybody though.
Thatch invited to group. Thatch invited to group. Thatch invited to group. This is just trash. Normally what we do is take all our enchanters and they would tame these princesses or these little spirits. Enchanter pets hit so freaking hard. The highest DPS in the game is the enchanter pet. Beats any real DPS by a country mile. Because they're not nerfed. They are like, if those things are level 60, which they wouldn't be because they wouldn't be able to mez a level 60. So Princess is a boss. She's the boss of Island 1, but she's an absolute pushover, no mechanics. If you see me backing up a lot, it's because my haste cloak is bound to my backup key, my back key, and it gives me 50% haste. But I have an actual haste buff from an enchanter, so it won't override. It's just muscle memory. I'm constantly backing up. It's very weird, but you get used to it after a while.
So this was Island 1. We don't have to clear the trash in this guild because we only need to kill however many people need keys. So if we have new people to our raid, we're getting them keyed up for these islands. Otherwise, we would literally skip right by the boss as well, because they drop pretty crap loot until you get to about Island 4. Or 8 islands. So they dropped a Bard belt with some haste. These are the droppable haste belts that are in here. You can only get them in here, you can't trade them or anything like that, they're no drop. They're really decent for a new player, but they're just considered like trash loot, basically, even though that came from the boss. That's not even DKP for us, it's just whoever wants it, otherwise it rots. This is Island 1.5. It's a skippable island. This is the only boss here. Noble DeJorn. It's not delivery, it's DeJorn. He drops weapons that are parts of quests. And you take that blank weapon, they're called Afridi weapons, and you combine it with other loot that drops from some of the later bosses on the islands. And you turn them into stuff like my sword, which is best in slot. He drops like a war sword. I needed that war sword plus an item from the very last boss in here to make this sword. So it's integral that you stop here and do this. Very boring. He has a mechanic where he does like an AoE. He actually has a boss mechanic. There are not many boss mechanics in Classic, but he's got one. But at this point, we're so decked out. They tell us to back out, but most of us don't even need to back out. We just soak it. If it looks increasingly boring, it's because I have my spell effects turned off. And there's a reason for that. No, my $3,000 computer can run Everquest just fine, but Project Quarm is really persnickety, especially if you have the Zeal upgrades to it, and just the compatibility of it is that if I have my graphics turned on, in Sky specifically, I'll eventually get Crash to Desktop. It doesn't matter how good anything is, it's not perfect for anybody. And I found that with some tweaks to running it in administrative mode and compatibility mode for Windows XP, so that it can actually run in Windows 10 or Windows 11, whichever version I'm using, that combined with spells turned off, I don't crash ever. It's very, very rare, like 1% of the time. So sorry you won't get to see those sick classic graphics. Not like I'd be able to see my character anyway, because the casters would be casting so hard. I'm blind as a melee. I actually like them turned off on a melee, but when I play my Necro and stuff, it does bother me. For some of my own welfare heals. Currently, right now, we have one of our monks go up to Island 3. Because on Island 3, everything is KOS. So what they do is gather them up into a giant ball, and they just kite it around, and if they get into trouble, they feign death. But normally, they'll just kite it around in a big ball, and then we'll have one of our tanks pull out of the ball. You see them, and they're flying demons. We'll see them in a moment. you guys a little glimpse of the raid loot. If you can see, I don't know if you can actually read that crap. You got two quest items, the Zui Handler, the Zwei Handler, and the Scimitar for druids, and I think the Zwei Handler is for Shadow Knight. And then these white satin gloves, which drop off all the bosses, and they're just like decent caster stuff, but they drop multiple times a night. Most people pick them up just for the fire resistance that we will use in corner. Even the next island doesn't have DKP loot. The demon. After that, though, there's the Harpy Island. That's Island 4. That's the first island that'll actually have loot worth dropping. And they just increased that island, 3 different islands, but that starting on Island 4, they increased the drops of the bosses from 1 to 2. Or no, from it was originally 1 drop, but then that Harpy got increased to 2, and now it got increased to 3 because people were complaining so much. See what happens when you give nerds an inch, we take a mile. We went from having no instance loot to competing for all this with hundreds of players to now increase the boss loot because we don't get enough in our private instances. But Secrets is awesome, and she listens, and she wants to make it very cool for all of us. One of her biggest pet peeves is people who lord loot over others. Loot accessibility. You're not better than somebody because you picked up your phone at 3 AM to kill a dragon. People with jobs are allowed to have fun in video games. It also doesn't make you any better that you were able to do that stuff. So now that we're all on an even playing field, there's no guild that's really better than any other guild. There is a guild that does the open world raids because that still exists in this game. So if you can race to the open world bosses, like you can go to the real sky and do all these islands by yourself with a guild. You're going to be competing with everybody else. But if you do that, you still can do your own instance. So it behooves a really big guild to do both, because then you get double the loot. But you'd have to be one of those people who can sign on at 2 AM if that's when the boss pops, because there's a variance on when the bosses pop. But in the instance, it's on time. It's 7 days from when you last killed it. It's exactly 1 week. Actually, Sky is only 18 hours. All the bosses. You could do Sky every single night if you want. But most wouldn't want to do that, and everybody hates Sky. Even though the best loot comes from here. Look at all those enchanter pets. Oh, it's an army. See this one with the spear and the sword? That's actual loot, like real loot. That's somebody that the enchanter gave them. And they also gave them a haste belt. This thing will wreck anybody if it gets off its leash. It could one-shot the enchanter that tamed it. And has before. High risk, high reward with enchanting. Or with the enchanters. That pet with the sword and the spear will out-DPS everybody in this raid. You can fall off the islands. You get pooped out into the ocean, like I said earlier. If you fall off, you lose all your buffs. You gotta go back up to the book. Then you have to go up. You have to click on the ashtrays. That's what we call them, but the portals, they just look like big ashtrays on the ground. You gotta get back to the group. My royalty-free music stopped. I bet you can hear me better, though. It's strange. I hope I'm not too low. I'm actually impressed with the classic bosses and the fact that they do have mechanics. Like these little island bosses, not so much. But like the dragons have mechanics like fear and AoE breath and stuff like that. It's really cool. 25 years ago, this stuff was implemented and it worked well, and people had to do it over 56K with no voice. Now it's a science for some of these veteran players. They know exactly where to stand, exactly what to do every second of the fight. And I'm ditzing around on a Ranger. As soon as we clear all the trash on this island, the boss will pop in the middle. He's just a bigger version of these winged imps, demons, whatever you want to call them. I love auto fire. 59 crit is actually sort of impressive on a Ranger. I think my highest is like 140 or 147, something like close to 150. Maybe it was even higher than that. Only after I got the best bow in Classic. But, you know, the night that it happened, a mage sent me a tell, one of my friends. And he's like, 157, that's so impressive. And then as soon as we were in awe about how good that crit was, one of the wizards crit for like 1,300 or 1,500. So I had to put it in perspective. I was like, nice. My best crit isn't even like 5% of his damage. I got an 86 crit just there. Like how the bow graphic just doesn't even work sometimes. Like I'm using a bow, but instead of just using two swords and magic arrows are just flying out of my chest. Yeah, Protector of Sky is the boss of Island 3. He's a huge pushover. We are having people die tonight, though. Not a lot. I think like 2 or 3 deaths so far. Being a healer is squishy no matter how good your raid force is. If you connect with a complete heal or something like that and the tank has an established aggro, that mob's just going to wail on you until you can like put up an immunity or you die. Which for most healers it's 1 or 2 punches from any of these things. That's the one benefit of playing a Ranger pretty much, is that we have to off-tank occasionally until we can eat a death touch. So we actually have to have enough HP and defenses to take punches in the face until we get touched to death. Ooh, touched to death, that sounds horrible. Phrasing. Until we get death touched. Luckily I don't have to worry about death touches for a couple more islands. Island 5 is where I'll probably be eating one, unless some of the other Rangers are going to be ahead of me. We normally do an order. And since I'm the best geared ranger, they generally put me towards the end of it, which is really nice. I don't have to go on my day off or on my off time to go farm the experience I've lost. But it sucks for the people who do have to take death touches, so I feel them. When I first joined here, I was like the only active ranger, and yeah, I was relegated to taking all death touches. And earlier I was mentioning that there are 2 bosses in here that can be farmed multiple times per night within 15-minute windows. One of them, it's actually not a 15-minute window because you respawn the mob every time. So you can literally kill him as many times as you want. That's the Spirok Lord. There are nights when earlier into our raiding career here, there were nights where we'd kill him 10 or 15 times, where I was the only ranger, so I was literally taking the death touch every single attempt. And every real death here, even with a 90% res, I'm still losing 1% overall experience. So 15 deaths, that's 15%. That's a couple of hours of getting that back. But it's important to have the buffer, and plus once Kunark releases, I'm already at 100%. All I'd have to do is kill one thing that yields experience, and I would level to 51. And 51 is pretty important for Rangers. I don't know if this is going to happen as soon as Kunark releases, but somewhere in the timeline, as a Ranger turns 51, if you're shooting at a stationary target that's not rooted and it's not chasing you, like if it's being tanked, you automatically do double archery damage. So it would double my bow damage, which is really nice. And that's just something you get for leveling. I don't even think I have to train it. Yeah, you actually like it. I mean, it's time consuming, dude, but like you put a couple hours into it each day, and you can level slowly, and the game is all about taking your time. Look at that, big surprise! White satin gloves again, off of every boss pretty much. Wizard bracers, and then we got some ebon shards, which is a necromancer quest item. All the quest items in here are for loot. I mean, equipment. Not just for loot, but just statistical equipment. So we're going up to Harpy Island. Nothing is KOS up here. And I think I actually have to do my job up here, which is to harmony stuff so that it reduces their aggro radius. Someone got this working on the Steam Deck, but you really need a mouse. Like this game, you can play the entire game with just a mouse. You really don't need a keyboard, unless you want to communicate with people. It's just one of those games. You can play with the keyboard and never use a mouse, or you can play with the mouse and never use a keyboard. It is early architecture MMO. I love the D&D vibes where if I cast See Invisible, there's actually mobs here that are invisible. And those are the actual mobs we want, are the clouds. We do not want those eyes. You see those eyes? F those eyes. They will AoE clear all of our buffs. They're not hard to kill, it's just they'll just keep zapping all the buffs off the entire raid, which will set us back 15-20 minutes. So my job as a ranger is to cast Harmony on these eyeballs here. Like that one right there, I just reduced his aggro radius so that he can't pull in if he sees us killing his buds. And that's pretty much my whole job on this island. I could participate in the fights if I wanted to, because lots of druids do this too. As a ranger, I'm like 25% druid as far as the spells I get. My level 50 spells, like 49 or 50 spells, are like level 20 druid spells. But a druid can't tank anything, so it's cool. Druids are really a good jack of all trade class in this game. They're considered healers, but they buff. They have really good dots. They can not teleport, but well, yeah, I guess it's porting. You get ports from druid. They can port you all over the world. Same thing with wizards. They can do teleports, and it's to different locations. But druids are the ones. They are the airline of classic EverQuest. You bother them if you want to travel the world, or you spend an hour traveling on foot. Hour or more, depending on where you want to go. Or you bug them, give them a couple platinum, and they shoot you across the world. I have a druid alt. It's not 30 yet. I think it's high 20s. I was going to do it for making money, but then in the course of me not being able to level on alt because I'm always raiding or working, I don't get a lot of time to level alts. Yeah, we know him. He's a mod in our group. He said his name earlier, but I don't want to destroy his anonymity. As I was saying, is that in the time it took me to get these alts to the level to actually earn me money, I got this character to best in slot, and he can actually farm money if he wanted to. Although I've got my old main, my warlock that I abandoned to level this ranger, she's 41, and she can make money hand over fist. I made like 4k plat in 24 hours. It was a very boring session, but I streamed it, and some people were like, hey, look at you. Raids are always going to be more exciting, because, you know, loot's involved and all that. Everybody loves loot, even if you're not getting it. I'm excited when my guildies get good loot. One of the issues that we have is we don't believe RNG, because RNG is a bitch to us. And that's a problem, because we only get Shadow Knight gear and Necromancer gear, it seems like. And it's to the point ad nauseum. People who have their alts are already completely decked out in this kind of gear, when like monks and rangers have been waiting ages and ages and ages for actual loot that we need. Yeah, better that you tell them instead of me. I don't want to name names on Discord. Try to keep it. Well, now that you've already said your name, I'd be glad to call you Jake instead of Grey Wolf. Unless you want me to call you Grey Bush, because you're an old man, because you just had your birthday. It figures as soon as my music goes off, my guild quiets down on Discord. Grey Bush it is. If Jesse ever watches me, I'll just have to call him Maple Syrup. I think he said that he played EQ like way back when, but I can't remember. I don't know. Me and Anthony, we played this back in '99 when it first came out. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We were kids. But just like, I don't know, it scratched an itch back then that no one knew they had. And I don't know. I can play modern MMOs and enjoy them to an extent, but nothing feels like this. I don't know. I never got to experience this full package in 1999, but I got enough of it to it. I don't know. It must have been like a drug. The first hit, you know, it's different. I'm still chasing that first 1999 EQ high, and it's working. I'd much rather play this than WoW. I considered going back to WoW for like the Seasons of Discovery thing, because that still does interest me. It looks fun. But I don't know. I can't even boot up Guild Wars 2 or anything like that. The modern, getting a cash shop right in your face, it's so off-putting. I know WoW doesn't really do that, but they have it there. Classic servers have WoW tokens implemented now, and that's just, I don't know. It feels dirty. All of it feels dirty. This is free. I mean, I could be playing retail EQ, but that would not be anything like this experience at all. Even their time-locked progression servers, which try to mimic that feeling from 1999, none of it feels like a private server that tries to emulate it to a degree. Project 1999 does a very good job at emulating it the best they could in 1999 with some quality of life improvements that don't break the game or make purists mad. This game has a lot of quality of life improvements that would make a purist mad. Like, for instance, just instance rating. This pisses people off. It shouldn't, but this pisses people off. Why are these people getting loot for minimal effort? That's not fair. It's not supposed to be a one-for-one. And that's what the server owner Secrets, that's what she set out to do. She did not set out to have a classic experience. She implemented rule sets that other MMOs have now today, like hardcore characters. Like if you die in the game, it's done forever, your character gets deleted. Or solo self-found, which means that you can only equip gear that you find with that character. You can't trade other characters. Only other solo self-found. You can only group with other solo self-found. And then you can combine those two, if you're a sadist, you could be a hardcore solo self-found character. Which means if you die, and you can only equip the gear you find. And if you get to level 50 on either of those combinations, or both of them together, you get a special title. I don't know if the title transfers over to other tunes, but you basically go into like a Hall of Fame. Yeah, a lot of games are doing it. WoW has its own hardcore rule set now, even though it started off as an add-on. But people were cheating on the add-on, and people begged Blizzard to do it for real, and they finally have it now. I was watching like drama videos on YouTube of the people on WoW just like cheating. There was whole hardcore guilds that were wiping in raids and just saying like, we didn't wipe, nobody has proof that we died. And then there would be people who leave those guilds who start drama and show the screenshots of the whole guild dying, and it was a legitimate kill, so they were supposed to retire those characters. And yeah, they got called out on it, and I don't think it made a lot of people happy. But now Blizzard has their own official server, so you can't cheat at it. But the rules are in this server, if you do have a hardcore character and you do die, if you die from like because you went link dead, if like your game crashed, but your character stays in for a few minutes afterwards, if you die that way, you petition the staff, because we have a CSR team. They're unpaid people, but they're anonymous people who work on the server, and they review your case, they review your log files, you send them your log files, and if they determine that it was not your fault, or you get trained on by someone who's being a jackass. Sorry, they were asking for Ranger stuff, but somebody's got it. Yeah, so you can petition the staff, and the staff, if they find it's legit, they'll restore your character. In fact, I think the very first Hardcore 50, he's a popular YouTube guy. He does other games. His name is Level Up Larry. He got to, I think as soon as he got to 50, one of the GMs killed him. Like they did a slash command, like a god command, and he killed him. But they weren't even meaning to do that. And as soon as he hit 50, we got the server-wide message, because if you're over like level 15, it tells the entire server when you die. And we're like, didn't he just hit 50? What? No, that's terrible. We all had a good laugh, and then the GM was like, I am so freaking sorry. They restored his character. It was like all anybody talked about for the first week. Yeah, well, we only have the one server here, so your tune can't go anywhere. I mean, I suppose they could let you keep it as a normal character, but it kind of defeats the purpose, because then you're still toting around on that character. Like, if you get the title, and you keep that title, you know, you wouldn't want that on a normal tune. It's a big pride thing. The server owner's got a thing about character pride. That's why she won't allow, like, armor dies. But then she's a little flip-floppy, because she'll implement a set that was supposed to be removed, but she'll just change the color of it. So we've had debates in my guild about the motivations of the server owner. She means well, and the server's not going to go anywhere because there's an anonymous benefactor that pays for all the server costs.
So as long as she's interested in keeping it going, and she's already stated on record that if she does lose interest, there's about 100 people who would legitimately take it over, so it's never going away. So we never have to worry about that, because she has had other classic-esque projects in the past that she's dropped because it didn't have enough support. But this thing took off big time. And, you know, I say big time, but our peak server count at one point was probably like 2.2 thousand players. That doesn't seem like a lot in an MMO, but we only have the one server, so if you have a couple of hundred max level characters and they're all in the same zone because there's only so many zones to go to at max level, it is very, very crowded. The leveling zones, the leveling instances, or the leveling dungeons, they're still very, very crowded. Here's loot from the Gorgolask. That is the... We got a wizard cloak and quest items for I don't know who. Griffin's Beak and Silken Strands, I'm not who that is. Got a paladin necklace. Decent necklace, but drops a lot. Yeah, I sent you the video for Level Up Larry. He's the one who did the tutorial, like, get Quarm set up in 2 minutes or whatever. It's pretty legit, though. You will get Quarm set up really, really quickly with his video. Only takes... You do more setting up an account on the, like, the form, the P99 form, or whatever form, the TAC-P form, than you're doing really any technical work. The download's like 2 gigabytes at most. And then there's little tweaks you can do. Like, so we have Luklin graphics set up. You can have that. These are classic graphics, right? But when you start up the game, you have the choice to do Luklin or classic, and you can change it later. The running joke, and just in general, players prefer the classic graphics more. They were very mad when the Luklin graphics came out because it's not that they look bad, it's they feel weird. The character models slide on the ground when these feel very grounded. Every step feels like a real step here, but the other ones just seem like they're ice skating. They make some of the gear that people fell in love with look different, like different colors and what have you. And of course, you know, it's like Ogre here. It's the meatball. We love original Ogre. They change it so much with the Luklin graphics, you lose your meatballs. But there's things you can do to tweak the server even further. There's a patcher that you can do to bring back the classic skeletons, because the Luklin skeletons are stupid. They're very, very stupid. These are Luklin wolves. We can't get the originals yet, but someone's working on trying to get us the original wolf model. So this is not bad, but the skeleton, man, if I were to show you a 1-for-1, I could put money down on everybody choosing the classic version. Now, the character models are completely up to you, but I love the classic models. We're going to Island 5. This was Island 4. It's going to be the first legit island. Like, this stuff that just dropped, yes, it's DKB, but it's the first DKB boss we have in here. And, you know, at this point, we have killed this boss more than any other boss in here. This is the first island that generally gives guilds a challenge. It's not even that big of a challenge either. So these are all split mobs. Every mob in here is a split mob. We bring it in. When we kill it, it splits into 2. Kill that one, it splits into 2. So on and so forth until, you know, you've gone through 3 or 4 rotations and you've killed them all. Once we kill any single one mob on this island, which is really like 6 or 7 mobs because that's how they split, one big Pegasus will spawn, named the Keeper of Souls. It death touches. It does a ton of damage. It won't split, but it stuns. It actually has mechanics. I mean, it won't look like much when you're watching my screen. I'll just be hitting its butthole, swiping some swords at it. My guild leader's not here yet because he normally runs late because of his work, and he's taking care of his kids. But normally the first thing he does is he sets up a tank order, a complete heal order, and then he sets up a death touch order. And he's been very kind to me by putting me towards the end, I guess because I'm just better geared than the other rangers. But they're really coming up to terms with the gear. They may be 1 or 2 pieces behind me at this point. Oh, I don't think I could do first person. When I'm swimming, I'll do first person. But first person, as a melee, no way. Max allowable? I think it's 70. We right now we have 38. You could do this whole instance with like 15, but the bee
which is the third to last boss. It's the hardest boss in classic content because she does a horrendous AoE poison, and she death touches, and she hits like she's the hardest hitting mob basically in classic content. Besides maybe the exception of 2 others that are optional bosses. If you remember me fighting that genie boss earlier, Noble, there's 2 other genies that spawn in this instance that have the same loot as him, but it's a rite of passage to beat them because they hit the hardest in Classic. But there's no real point to doing them if you don't need any genie loot. It's optional chances to get more of the same loot, but at this point in my guild, we're pretty much all genied out. We need drops from like the last boss, which is the Eye of Vishan. There are guilds on this server that will field a 70-man raid, 2 70-man raids to split it so that everybody's getting loot, and then they'll do the open world raids as well. We're just not one of those guilds. We're quality over quantity. Yeah, I kind of like it. It's more of an intimate setting. You get to learn these people's names. It's not about competition. See, they split into 2. Then we'll separate. They'll tell us which one to attack. We'll kill the one that we're on. It'll split again. So there are mechanics in Classic. I was always told and understood the fact that there probably wouldn't be. I thought it was like very dumbed down content, but no, there's some. It might be simplistic, but there's some. It's still impressive to be 25 years old to see stuff like this. It's even more impressive to know that 25 years ago people did this on 56K and with no voice. They thought that Griffin attacked. They're like, we got a Griffin. Then someone's like, no, he's just sitting there, menacingly. When you raid with a bunch of old dudes, you get some early season Simpsons joke. All very old pop culture references. I love it. I am an old man amongst older men. And like the 2 females that we actually have in our guild. Another white satin gloves. Gonna build a house out of those gloves one day. I still don't have a pair. I've never rolled on them. So we finished that pack. Boss spawned over there, Keeper of Souls. Gotta do some rebuffing. Sending tells to my peeps. We got someone. Oop, wrong button. Trying to talk to my guild. I'm not used to these dual buttons. I'm gonna take a real death touch. That's the way the rotation goes. Damn, I just rebuffed too. Well, at least you guys will get to see what real rangers are all about. Taking a punch to the face so hard it just throws me out of the instance. So basically what I'll do is just keep whacking on this dude, start sending up a couple of pre-spells to build threat. Ended up eating it anyway, even though somebody else took the death touch. My threat was too high, so... And then I ate the rage too. At 10% it rages and does like crazy amounts of damage. Tons of loot off this one, wow. It's the first week we've gotten the 3. Tons and tons of loot, that's awesome. Got wizard helmet and monk helmet quest items. Those are the DKP items. The other items are given to you if you win these DKP items. So like if you were watching, the ability to mem all my spells automatically, that's part of Zeal, which is a server upgrade packet that you can put into your game folder. And you can do these things called spell sets, so you remember what sets of spells you were using. You can name them and customize them to your own, devices. It's really cool. Without it, I'd have to go into my spell book and put each spell that I had lost when I died back into its place. But now I just have like infinite spell sets for different tasks. So we are on Island 6, Spirok Island. Lots of birds. And this is the first island where the boss can be done multiple times. This is unlimited. You can kill him as many times as you want to if you do it right. You have to leave one mob up on the island, because if you don't kill the special mobs that are here in a certain order, they all respawn. So if you do it correctly, you only leave one trash mob up, and every time you kill the boss, once he spawns, he automatically respawns because you didn't do it in the right order. So, and that's a legitimate thing. That's how it worked in 1999. That's how it works now. And we've done nights where we've done 10, 15 of these guys, 16 of these guys. But first we have to get rid of the birds. I mean, it's all birds on this island, but we got to get rid of the trash birds. You have to do them in a very certain order. It's like alphabetical. They all have different names, but we have to kill the vanquishers first, and then it goes in a pattern. So it starts. I've lost 1% experience for eating one death. The way that these instances work, in real EQ in 1999, if you were in a raid zone, you still got full experience. So all these trash mobs will give you full experience. And in a raid, you do get reduced experience, but you still get decent experience. But here, sorry, someone's talking to me. I got work to do. I am on harmony duty, which means I just have to watch these birds for a couple minutes. They're already pulling stuff over there. If I don't keep harmony on these things, they'll just run over there and ruin the whole thing. It's so boring, but it's necessary. Yeah, they're like bird people. They look really awful. Classic at its finest. Some classic models look really, really great, but you could tell these were like probably the first ones developed. Or damn near. Carl, yeah. They had such a bad GPU that they couldn't turn on the graphics, so they had to go into the files and edit them. So yeah, the dragons were just the very basic human male. I remember him fighting, he's like, this is so epic. I'm like, you're just fighting a big naked dude. It is cool that you can at least go into the files and do stuff like that. Like, I hated the fairy noise, and somebody told me you could just go in there and delete the sound file. Totally works. Now I gotta bug people for more buffs. Gotta get all them buffies so that I can eat another death touch soon. Maybe. Watching this tank eat it. As you guys you can't see because I don't have the graphics turned on. But they're like, it's really intensive. The tank is getting pounded and he's chain heals, and pretty sure a paladin hit him with a lay on hands, which has got like, I don't know, a fairly long cooldown in classic. Cool side effect of this island is that all the mobs technically have blinds. So, and in EQ, at least in classic EQ, your whole entire screen goes black. And you have no idea what's going on. The first time it happens, everybody thinks their computer is bugging out. But nope, it just blacks out your screen completely like your monitor died. They tend to only do it on tanks, though, but sometimes they'll just do it to you for fun. A quirky thing that happens with just the mechanics of the old server, just the way it works, is that you know, every time you hit a target with a melee attack, it moves them ever so slightly. So when a raid force is attacking something, we can actually push it around the battlefield, which can be advantageous or could be really bad. You can knock a mob off the island. If you do that, you're effed. Because it's still going to exist. It's not going to fall out of the instance. It's just going to beat up everybody from underground. In actual retail classic EQ, you could stop a mob from casting if you moved it too much, but that doesn't work that way on this server. We thought it did for a while, but it doesn't. But it's good because most strategies will have you push a boss into a certain area. Like our dragons, we pin them in the corner. Holy hell. He hit me hard with something. I don't think that was a... Somebody nuked me. We're doing bad right now. We got the Guardian. We see, now we're not going to be able to do multiple kills on the boss of this island. But maybe that was by design. People really hate doing multiple kills on this island. So yeah, no fall damage. And it's also very weird. They have no vertical access like aggro range. So if a mob falls through the ground or the island or whatever, or you're up in the air with a levitate, that mob will still beat the hell out of you. You can't do it to them, but they could do it to you. So if you think like with a levitate running off of a cliff is going to save you, nah, they're just going to run at ground level and just smash you. Mobs cheat. They're often very fast. Sometimes like Sao level, like Spirit of Wolf's level fast, even though they don't have the buff, so you can't debuff them. They're just that fast. Tough luck. Oh, there we go again. I got wallops. Jeez. Can't take much more of those big wallops. We're just going to keep this thing mezzed while our healers recuperate. Pick up all these dead bodies on the ground. Look at that bird. Look how fast that bird is, man. Zoom. Just realized I didn't create a be right back screen, but I have a technical difficulty screen for some reason. These raids can go a while. Looking at another 2 to 3 hours in here. At the rate we're going though, not bad, but once we get to the next island, the B island, things are going to slow down colossally. There's so much prep for the Queen Bee fight because she doesn't even exist until you spawn her by killing splitting wasps, and then eventually they turn into these bixies. And she's a Bixie queen, and the mobs preceding her hit very, very hard too. Some of the hardest hitting mobs in Classic, and she herself is a Mac trap. It's lots of like, we'll kill a trash pack and then kite one wasp while all the healers start to get their mana back. It's the only working strategy really for guilds at this point. But like I said earlier, these raids, you come back here for your epics and stuff, so they update them at some point as well in like Velios with better gear. They revamp all of the planes basically so that you can come back. But later when you come back and you have the level cap is increased to 60, we'll get that level cap increase in July, and you come back at 60, and then suddenly druids can tame those Pegasus from one of the previous islands, and those things hit insanely hard. The best pets in here, but they can't tame them yet because they're too high of a level. But that extra 10 levels, it makes a world of difference. You can clear this place in like an hour and a half at level 60. And that's just because of the level ups. It's not including any of the new spells or anything like that. Maybe the disciplines. The disciplines are insane. Once we get access to disciplines, warriors right now are the worst tanks in the entire game. Their aggro generation is based off of whatever proc weapons they can get. Because proc weapons, whether they hit or not, or do damage, they have a proc threat level that's associated with them. So as long as you get the message that it procced, it doesn't matter if it hit or not, they get all that threat. But it still makes them the worst tanks in the game right now. They have the worst mitigation. That all changes in July, because then they get all of their disciplines, which are like defensive stance. So for like 2 minutes, you can't be critical, or 2 minutes, you 50% less damage. Stuff like that. It makes every boss fight simple. They become from the worst tanks in the game to the best tanks going forward throughout the future of the game. But that doesn't discount any of the other tanks. Like Shadow Knights have their place. Right now, Shadow Knights are the best tank in the game, and Paladins are going to have their place. They all have their own places. Warrior is just going to be the best, though. That's just the age of the game. They've all mathed it out. Warriors are just pretty much the best for everything. But there are specific fights where you're always going to need an off tank, and Shadow Knights are so much better as an off tank because they can rip threats so easily, and they can self heal. They do a lot of life tapping. Well, now that we screwed up and we pulled the sub-boss we weren't supposed to pull, we only get one boss on this island now. Which, like I said, might have been by design, because people really hate doing multiple lords. That's the Spirit Lord. You can see his head just over the horizon there. He death touches, so someone's going to have to pull in, eat a death touch, then we pull him in, and then every 45 seconds after that, he's going to death touch again. Just like the Pegasus we fought on the previous island, the boss Pegasus, the Keeper of Souls. See, right now, lots of people needs res, or a lot of people need reses. So, you know, it's slow going. It's a lot of mana. We have one cleric in our guild who has a We call it a click stick. It has a 90% resurrection in it. It's 0 mana. But it only has 6 charges. He has to recharge it outside of this instance every time he uses it 6 times. It might even... I think it's 6. It's either 3 or 6. I think it's 6, though. He pays a couple platinum, recharges it. But you do it right outside this island because it came from here. It's loot from here. Now, when Kunark comes out in July, every cleric's goal, their only job is to get their epic as soon as humanly possible. Because that's how impactful that epic is. For Quarm, since we're stopping at Pop, that epic stays paramount. Relevancy stays all the way through Pop. Once you get it, you have checked off the biggest check mark there is for Cleric. Because it is a 96% res, mana free. It speeds up raids by a staggering amount. Because resurrections take so much mana. And everybody wants the highest EXP res they can get so that they're not farming experience later. 96% is as high as it ever goes. And it's funny too because we had whatever the last holiday was. I think it might have been Valentine's Day. No, okay, so it was for 420. It was April 20th. Everybody got a flaming sword. You just had to talk to a vendor, and they'd give you one with 69 charges, 420, 69, that had 90% reses on it, and it had like 75 charges. So for that week only, because it was only supposed to be like for 2 days or something, it happened to occur during the week where we were raiding, like during the raid week, and everybody was like, I got you, bro. It was the fastest raids we had, because everybody had the flaming 420, 69 sword. Actually, I didn't, because I logged on the day after 420. I never logged on to 420 because I didn't know what was happening. So I didn't have one, but almost everybody else in my guild did. So it was like such a smooth raid. You die, it don't matter. You're back up, on the spot. People still talk about how much they miss that sword. It's fun little stuff like that Secrets puts out for us to have fun. Like every major holiday, there's something going on. For Halloween, for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, we have these event zones. For Christmas especially because there's 2 different event zones. But last time that we had our major holiday, I think it was for Valentine's Day, we had 4 different event things taking place at once. She reinstated the Thanksgiving one, the Halloween one, the Christmas one, and did a Valentine's Day one where you can get married to any other character in the game, another player. And anytime you were in the party with each other, you got a 20% experience increase. And you share a last name for the event, and then when the event went away, your last name would be cleared. So you get married, and then the Thanksgiving event was anything that could fly, anything with wings that could fly, like turkeys. You got like 10% extra experience from, and if you were outdoors, it was like another 5%. So yeah, it was like, turkey murder. I don't think there's actual turkeys in the game, but that was the premise of the event. And then for Christmas, we had our own event zone. Santa Claus, the Goblin King, he waged a war on the Barbarian starting city, and we got a private instance for it, where it was like from level 35 to all the way to 50. You just kill these little Christmas goblins. And they were tough too because they leash, and so you couldn't pull them far. And they hit like trucks, so groups would just pile into these little tiny buildings and just kill chain kill them for hours and hours and hours. I spent hours in there. What else? Okay, so for Halloween, there was the Shard of Decay, which was like the Plane of Decay. It was a pop level zone where there was a god. Bertoxilus was the god that was in there. And they let us port all over the world for free in that zone, and that was also a leveling zone. I think it was like, might have been 5 to 30. And then for Christmas, on top of that Santa zone, we also got the tower, Kern's Tower from Kunark. And she called it "Oops, all ice bones," and there were only ice bone skeletons in it, besides a few other mobs that dropped special loot. And all they did was just drop bone chips and stuff. It was a necromancer's paradise. But you can go from like 1 to 30 in there, So if you did it right, you do 1 to 30 in there. Then if you wanted to, you could Shard of Decay until 35, or you can go into the open world and kill flying creatures for 5 levels. Then you go back to the Christmas zone, and you could do 1 to 50 with all of the event stuff that was happening. And people did a lot with their alts. It was much faster too. You marry somebody and you do that as long as you guys have the same playtime. You're getting like, I think at peak it was something like 36% extra experience. Then the zones have an EXP modifier as well, and they were slightly above average. I think it was like maybe 3 to 5% extra. So people were just flying, man. And people still talk about missing all that stuff because in Classic there's not enough zones for higher level. Like after 35, 40, you're pretty much relegated to 2 different zones. Lower Guck, which is a bunch of undead frogs, and it's a hellhole. It's like really good loot, but it's so easy to die there. And then there's Kedge Keep, which is an underwater zone that everybody hates because swimming and combat suck together. But some people love it because no one ever goes there. So it's just it's a wonderland of mobs that are good for small groups or solo if you're a good solo class. And no one's ever going to bother you while you're in there. But with Guck, you know, you have live frogs and then dead frog. And if you've not worked your faction, if you've never killed a dead frog, you'll never get good faction for the live frogs. So if you're an evil race, the live frogs want to kill you and the dead frogs want to kill you. So you've got to invis past the live frog, then invis past the dead frogs. And only a necromancer can do that, but even then, you can't have both invisibilities up at the same time. So you have to find a safe little nook and cranny to sneak into. Drop one invis, put up the other invis. And if you're a class that can't do invisibility versus undead, you gotta buy like 200 platinum potions that have like 10 charges to do it to yourself. It gets hectic down in Guck, but so many people love it, but really, you're gonna either learn to love it or you're gonna learn to hate it. And I refuse to go to Guck. I hate Guck so much. I don't like Kedge any better, but Guck is like the place that you want to go. So like right now, on my Necromancer, if I wanted to level it, I have Guck or Kedge, or I could just do solo pulls, and I'd rather do solo pulls out in the open world. I can kill specters for like 1% experience per kill, so every 100 of those specters I kill nets me a little bit of platinum and a full level. And I could do that from 40 to 50 if I want to go all the way to 50, but I would switch to guards at some point. Of course, we're right about to do this boss, and I have got to go potty so bad. I drank way too much Milo's iced tea. Well, at least they want to get it done quick. Blap, death touch. So I was trying to rip to grab that DT, but my guild was off on the counter, so the tank ended up eating it. I had him too. I ended up tanking it until it died. Looks like a shaman belt. Very, very good shaman belt, apparently. Nah, they never. Even when the rangers screw up, sometimes the aggro just doesn't work correctly and the rangers can't grab it. And they're really cool about it. It is what it is, you know? That's why we always have backup tanks. And I think the only time anybody's ever getting mad is when our clerics are taking hits. Like if tanks can't establish aggro and it just turns around and starts whopping all of our healers. If you kill the cleric specifically, the other healers don't matter nearly as much. It's because the cleric can do chain heal. It's a very slow cast, and they do a rotation for it so that it lands every 3 seconds or so. They tell you how many seconds they want in between the chain heal. And the chain heal right now can heal any amount of HP that the game can have statistically. Eventually, in one of the later expansions, chain heal won't give you a full heal. Or not, it's not chain heal, so I'm sorry, it's called complete heal. Like raid bosses in Classic can use it on themselves. One of the raid dragons can actually use it on herself. So the enchanters normally have to burn her mana before you really get going on it. But yeah, with the complete heal, everything hinges on that spell. You can't raid without clerics in Classic. The more you have, the better. Oh, that's what that turns into. Wow, that's a very awesome belt. That one belt I linked that dropped turns into that. It has a clarity on it and charges, and those can be recharged. A clarity gives yourself your own haste. So we're not even going up to the next island, which is B Island. We are going to have one of our monks go up to B Island, which is that island up there. And they're going to suicide jump off with their own bees that we're going to pull down. They're going to hope they land on the island down here. And then we're going to pull it into our group while the healers just recover. Sometimes we do the boss up there, sometimes we pull them all down here that way. But monks, they know what they're doing. They could always land on this island. While these guys are prepping and getting ready for the next pull, I'm going to run to the bathroom real quick. 30 seconds, I'll be right back. Probably grab another drink as well. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be right back. I am back, if you didn't see on my screen, so I was immediately talked to. If you're wondering what I'm doing, sometimes he can miss. Yeah, sometimes he can miss that jump and I have to heal him as he's falling to his, into the water. In doing so, I would get the bee on me and I can bring the bee to the group. They're really wasps, but people call them bees because it's a bee island. So we got people that kite the other wasps out after the split so that we don't have to deal with them all at once. I was trying to grab one, but Drew did a very good job ripping. Because it was wild day, we didn't have anybody on it. And now we'll call them in, and each kiter will bring one in at a time. Poor Cleric just ate it. She got rezzed right into the group. You get rezzed at like 20% 20% HP, and the mob's just gonna look at the HP list and it's automatic threat. It's called death aggro. Cause you're gonna die. Ah, Druid just caught it. Poor Ziz took it, ate it, now he's a dead little wolf on the ground. So even when you're kiting these things, you need to run away from them once they're in the group, because most mobs, not even boss level mobs, at this level in raids can summon you. So if they're pissed off at you, and they will be if you just kited them around the island for a couple minutes, if the tank can't effectively rip, they're just going to keep summoning the person over and over again and womp them. So that was one pull from the island above, from the bee island. I think we have 2 more pulls, and then the pull that has the boss in it that will spawn out of that group. At that point, we're going to do all of our rebuffs and put on our resistance gear, because the queen bee is the hardest encounter. But it's nothing fancy. Like if you were watching it for the first time, you'd be like, what's different from that fight compared to all the other fights? It's nothing really. She just hits like a truck, has an AoE poison that goes out that needs to be cleared with either potions or casters clearing them. Yeah, she's a real bee. Bixies are one of those also like classic models that look awful, and they're supposed to be really tiny, so you wouldn't notice, but they blow her up to gigantic portions. So it's like a really low poly, low textured model, but it's giant, so you see it in great detail, and it's just laughable.
But it's so funny that this stupid ugly bee is just wrecking people. One of the hardest hitting mobs in Classic, if not, the hardest. She can hit for like, I think, between 700 and 900, and she can triple, which means she could do that 3 times in a second. Every guild operates different on Quarm because they just have their own rules. One of the cool things about this guild that I'm in now, Savage, I've been with them since December or late November. They're awesome. You don't have to come to raid. If you do, you get DKP for every boss you kill for every hour you're here. But if you gotta go, like we just had one of our rangers just decide he's gotta go, he's got an early day tomorrow. He's just like, I'm gonna bow out. That's it. No animosity, no nothing. You can raid 1 night a week. You can raid all 4. You just do whatever you want to do. I mean, if you want gear, though, you're going to have to show up to raids because you want that DKP. But if you just want to casually, hey, let me come to raid tonight. Let me see what's going on. We'll always accommodate. Like, if we get a new person and they come to Sky specifically tonight, they need a key for every single island. We'll get them every single key. Instead of skipping and getting the place done quicker, we'll get them every key and make them go to every island so they can experience it. There's no benefit to being a Dark Elf Ranger in Sky. I just like using my mask because it looks cooler than the human I pick. I don't get a cool panther that comes out of a figurine. I'm not R.A. Salvatore. But they should have at least put an item in game for an homage to that for him, considering that he played in '99. Would have been cool for something for him to earn, is to get a Guinevere figurine or something like that. Like my sword, the scimitar, it summons wolves occasionally, because it's the scimitar of the Mistwalker. It summons a Mistwalker wolf, which is a incorporeal wolf that bites the hell out of targets. Like they could do that, but they didn't do one with a cool panther. Come on. Maybe those devs didn't like those books, but I find that extremely hard to believe. That's nerd culture, like, wrapped up. If you gotta like some of that stuff. Even if you're not a fan of Dritz, because, he's so over-popular. But still, some of those characters, Catti-Brie and Brunor, they're just iconic. It's such a good series. I didn't like what happened to them later in some of the later books, but initially to start, like, the Dritz saga was amazing. It's so like iconic in D&D culture now. Like, I wanted like a whole subsection of Dark Elves, of Drow, were birthed because people wanted to leave the Underdark. That wasn't a thing back then until he wrote it. He changed the format of D&D and those races going forward. So yeah, you could hate his later work. It did feel a little, like you said, he ran out of ideas, definitely. He had like 20 books by that point when I was bored of it. But like the Crystal Shard and stuff, that first stuff of him escaping the Underdark, that was riveting stuff. And I, like, me, we've known each other since we were kids. I hate reading. I'd much rather listen to a book. Audiobooks really change things for me. Close enough, man. Still talking to you guys instead of my raid. Gotta get used to these 2 different BTTs.
the wasp stopped to kill somebody else that was up there. It just decided, I'm gonna aggro and kill you. We thought we lost it. We're like, where the hell is it? Then it just popped up like, hey, sorry, I had to kill your friend. Oh, just got stunned. Gotta love stuns in classic EQ. Just start spinning. You have no control over your camera. And depending on what kind of like environment you're in, if you're in the water and you get stunned, you spin at a crazy speed. And I don't know if that's a bug or what, but there's a boss called Finny Oxytropis. He's like the last kid. He's like a big fish man. He's actually the easiest raid boss in the game. You only need like 5 people to kill him, even in classic era. He does a stun though, like an AoE stun, and if he spins you and you're in the water and you have like a free camera if you're in third person, oh boy, you're gonna get sick. You're just spin me right around, babe. But the fight is so short that it's like it's not even a threat. You're just like, wee. He drops a lot of staffs for mages and wizards and parts of their epics that you can collect early before epics release. Casters are just like, we need to do Finny, and he's on a 18-hour cooldown, so you could do him every day if you want to. But most of the raids are just like, no more Finny. We hate Finny. It takes 15 minutes to clear to him and 2 seconds to kill him. But it's in an awkward zone that nobody wants to go to. But we make it a habit. Every Wednesday we'll do our dragons, the 2 world dragons, Lady Vox and Lord Nagafen, which is a fire and an ice dragon. And then we'll do Finny. And now we've added the Hole, which is a whole new zone. But it's like a hole in the ground. It's where Payneal exploded, which is the Uterite capital. They were doing dark magic and they exploded their own city. They dug a hole into the underfoot. And there's a couple of raid bosses in there. But the zone was meant for small-scale combat, like small group. But since there's a raid target in there that drops epic components later when Kunark releases, they had to, the server owner decided to make it an instance for everybody as well. And I think that's on a 72-hour timer, so every 3 days you can do the whole, and we do it on Wednesday. Sometimes on the weekends we'll do stuff like that. And it's fun, so we'll cram all that into a Wednesday. We'll do 5 raid targets. These poor guys, that guy's new. If you don't stand up after a split, it's gonna come and wreck you. Sit aggro is higher than most aggro. Yeah, when they die, it's like blah, blah, blah. They just kind of burn out. It's even funnier when a female fat bee model is the one that's dying. Especially after she just wrecks your entire raid. Now we're going to transition, put our resist gear on, get our resist buffs, because the next pack is the big B. Yeah, but are you gonna do anything with the sword when you get it? Do you have an alt? I mean, you have the DK, but it has to be appropriate level, right? Like, I think you need to be 80 for it. Or is it 80 or is it 75? I can't remember. Kata was like one of those weird expansions with only 5 levels. I always found the archaeology bind on account stuff weird because it had a level restriction when all the other BOA stuff was famous for not having one because they leveled with you. I mean, you might as well go for the sword. You really ponied up all of this archaeology. You put a lot of time into it. At least at that point, you could say I've gotten every single item of worth. There's probably an achievement based on it too, maybe. If you're into the Chivos. So we are going up to Bee Island for Queen Bee. I think I am fully buffed. No, I am missing some HP somewhere. I'm missing either Druid or Cleric. I am gonna bother a Druid, I think. I mean, I see Clerics, but their mana is so much more important than a Druid's mana. Oh, so you're almost there with the achievement. That's cool. Yeah, you've been really going at it, man. Doesn't make super good stream quality stuff, but I like conversing with you while you're digging holes. Kind of like when I'm fighting boring hill giant. You come for the conversation, not for the riveting gameplay. That's where I'm missing all my HP. They gave me the welfare symbol. This is important. I need the good symbol. It'd be pretty cool if you ended up being like one of the first people to get the dragon form. And then you can tell everybody in your guild, like, I'm not anybody's taxi. Get out of here. Nobody's riding this guy.
I remember one of my favorite things to do in the Burning Crusade, no, not Burning Crusade, but Wrath of the Lich King. As soon as I got my mecha chopper, back before they started dropping patches to fix stuff, originally you could drive that thing off of anything and it had its own HP, so it would die and you would just pop off. But taking somebody on the side cart on that thing the first time when they had no idea what was happening, and just going down the Dalaran sewers and shooting yourself out the pipe, back before they gave passengers a parachute, and making your friends drop to their death. Because I was an engineer, I built the bike, I just used my own parachute cloak. I'm like, hey, you want to take a ride on this bike? And they're like, yeah, hell yeah, I want to take a ride on that bike. No, alright, come on, we're going to go down the sewers, I'm going to give you the world tour. Shoot out the pipe and then just kill them. I did that to Weath, you know? I did that to a lot of people. Then they started changing it and giving passengers parachutes for safety reasons. I probably contributed to the nonsense factor, because I did it a lot. I would shout in the city, free rides in the mecha chopper, because I was one of the first people to have it. What's a couple of gold for repairs amongst strangers? So I don't even have a bow equipped for this fight. I have a quest dagger because it has a ton of resist gear on, or resist on it, for disease and poison. So my disease resistance, because she does a disease, not actual poison, is 164. If I was an important class, I would be in a group with a bard. And bard songs can give you like an extra 150. You can get your resist to like 3 something. And you'd be resisting every one of her poisons and making her a simple fight. But I also have like this disease remove potion. 2 little chugs on that and it'll clear one of her applications. It's the only way I stay alive as a ranger. But she death touches too, so I kind of got to stay alive, but it really doesn't matter. If I'm not alive, they're like, next ranger, next ranger. So they want to do multiple sisters, which is the next island, next boss. So as soon as we kill this bee, it's going to get really hectic. Because we're only going to have 15 minutes to kill as many sisters as we can. So this next pack we're going to dissect, basically. We're going to kill 2 of the ads and kite 1, or kill 1 of the ads and kite 1 for a long time while we get up to 100 mana, 100% mana for all our healers. And then we'll kill the bee at full, everybody's at full. And then immediately after that, the timer starts. We have a 15-minute timer, or maybe like 22-minute timer, something like that. We have to go to the next island and start pulling that boss, chain pulling. And of course, the sister's death touch too. So someone's going to have to eat a touch just to bring her in, and then she's going to touch 1 person per fight, pretty much, because she's going to last longer than 35 seconds. In a perfect world, it would just be the pull touch, which this all sounds incredibly naughty. But yeah, we'd eat the DT for the pull, and that's it. But I don't think our DPS is high enough, because we don't have enough people here. We're like 40 people right now. So it's going to be 2 people per sister. At least 2 people per sister. Until we teeter out and we start taking 3 or 4. And like, you're not waiting for a res. You're coming immediately back in here, looting your corpse, leaving 1 item on your corpse so it could be resurrected, and jumping right back into the fray. It's probably everybody's least favorite part. But this is going to be the second to last boss in here, so she drops a lot of items for very good quests. So if you could kill more than 1 of those, you're increasing your loot for your entire raid. There are some guilds that can kill her 10, 11, 12 times in that amount of time, which is insane. This is like 1 per minute. We're just not big enough for that. Like I said, we got 40 people here right now. We could have 30 more.
Look at that army of fairies from the very first island. However many fairies you see is probably exactly how many enchanters we have. Sometimes we like to have a reserve enchanter just in case somebody's pet breaks and they die. We have the one backup to get in there and take care of the pets. And of course, every little tiny purple wisp here is a skeleton. It's a necro pet. And all the genies, all the mage genies, they're invis until they attack. So they're here, so if I put up see invis, you'd see them, but you're not going to see them right now because I don't have it up. I know I mentioned it earlier when we were like on Island 3, but like having see invis and being able to see extra mobs and stuff in the world in some of these instances is really cool to me. Such a nice touch. I remember in classic WoW you could do that as a warlock if you like had see invis, or if you were a mage with see invis, you could see all the dark shadows outside of Undercity. You could interact with them. You could kill them if you wanted to, but they were like non-aggro. No, it literally is their summon. So in the Plane of Sky, mages can only summon the air pet, but it visually changes them into female djinns or female genies. Just like every necromancer, their skeletons get transformed into these little wisps. They're still essentially the very same pet, but they just visually look different. It's the only plane that this works in. If you go to fear or hate, it's the same pet you would always have. It's just Plane of Sky is different. This was meant to be the end game content for Classic. It's the hardest raid. So I guess they just want to do a nice spin on it. I do like the fact that they locked mages to only use the air pet. That makes sense. You're in the elemental plane of air. How strong are you? You can summon an earth elemental or something like that. Air only. So see, as soon as they engage on this B, you're going to see a ton of genies. Here's one, there's two. I don't know how many mages we have here tonight, but at least two. You can't even see the necropets because they're so tiny. The one from the Epic is a combination of all four, yeah. And it's a higher level, it hits harder, it gets most of the abilities from all the different pets. It can't do everything, but it's the go-to pet for 99.9% content once you have it. Now, there exists in-game now, even though the Epic doesn't exist, you can get staffs that are part of the Mage Epic that give you a focus effect for types of magic. So if you get the Earth Staff, your Earth pet is amped. It gets an additional level, it gets more damage, etc. There's one for every pet. There's an Air Staff, an Earth Staff, Fire, and Water. Alright, so that's the second to last B. Bzz turns into like Bizbuzz or something like that. But we're not going to even kill it right now. He's going to kite it forever. Until we are all resurrected, 100% mana, and that's the only way you can really get a leg up in here. Yeah, so the staves, all four of those staves, you need all four of them for your Mage Epic. But until the Mage Epic is released, you use them, you slot that thing in your main hand so that whatever content you're doing, if you're using Earth Pet, you want to use, one higher level. And the same thing for Necros, right? So Necros get a book from one of the gods, from the God of Hate, in the Plane of Hate, Inaruk. It's the Necro, like the Necro Condamanda or whatever. It's like the Encyclopedia of the Dead. It makes your Necromancer pets one level higher, and they hit harder. And it's like pet focus is what they really call it. There's not a lot of them in Classic, but yeah, the end game stuff in Classic is the precursor to the pets epics. Yeah, so you can get all four of them now. Mages, I believe, can basically get the whole epic now, so that when Kunark drops, you're not doing much. Maybe one or two mobs to farm an item, and those items that drop off those mobs are going to be incredibly increased on Quarm, because they'll be in instances that you can do with group content or raid content, and instead of like a 36-hour spawn timer, it'll be 8 minutes. I don't think it's the Necronomicon in here, but it's essentially the same thing. I think it's called like the Necro Encyclopedia or something like that. As soon as this bee dies, it's going to immediately death touch somebody as the boss spawns, because that's the boss will death touch somebody. Visually, she won't look different than this, but it's much scarier. It's like we're backing out now because we want somebody to eat that death touch. I got poisoned, so I had to take it off. Had to use my poison potion. My disease potion. She's going down nice and quick though. 14 seconds before our DT. We're gonna have her maybe killed before then, maybe not. It's looking like a nope. Oh wow, it's gonna be so close. I think yeah, cool, we got her dead before the DT. And it looked like we were like a cohesive group, right? But no, it's these Thunder Spirits. These stupid, noisy fairies that just murdered that bee. Like, there are DPS parsers. They're really shoddy at best, but when you look at them, pets are just so freaking high. Necro pets if they have the book, mages if they have the focus staff, but above all else, enchanter. If you can stomach the complexity of playing an enchanter and never going to the bathroom, you're playing the most OP broken class in the game forever. They never get weak. They can do everything. So the bee drops the last piece of gear I need. It's a white gold earring or something like that. We'll see if they drop tonight. I really don't need it, but I would love to complete it and say I have it. Oh, it didn't drop. Okay. This is what we're looking at. We got a Bard neck, Cleric neck, and I don't know what the box of winds is for. We just had a Bard get his last piece of sky. Well, he's gotta compete with the other Bard. So now it's going to be erased. People are turning in their keys, and then we will start killing sisters and chain killing her. Sister is much easier to kill than bee. I know that looked pretty simple, but that was very intensive for some people. Especially the cleric. Like, we even screwed up in that fight, and our tank ate a death touch when he shouldn't have. That's what happens when you put a bee in a blender, though. You remember back in the day, the fishbone earring let you breathe underwater? It was like a really big deal because the mob was like on a 32-hour spawn timer or something like that. And you only had like a 15% chance of dropping it. Well, you know, the theme of this server is to respect your time. The guy's on a 15-minute timer, 100% drop rate, so now everybody gets one. I've had this bad boy since I was level 20. It's the best. I just love it. I love that something so iconic to the classic experience of having to you know, lie, cheat, and steal your way to the best items in the game. You don't have to do that for the majority of them. You still gotta earn raid loot, but something as simple as, like, I want to breathe underwater. Instead of paying somebody 1,000 platinum for the earring that you'll only see a couple of times a week, now you just go out there, kill the guy. It's yours. Wait 15 minutes for him to respawn if somebody's killing him before you. It doesn't take anything away from the game. It doesn't take anything away from the exclusivity. When it first came out, he had a 75% chance to drop it. But we were also under the impression that on the first of the year, that it would go back to its normal loot rules. But Secrets had a change of heart because they became choke points. You should have seen those mobs that drop stuff like that. Those iconic items like my mask that turns me into a dark elf. There were lines formed with dozens of people thinking that they were never going to get a chance to get this stuff again. And Secret's like, she hates loot denial. It's like the #1 bane of her existence. She doesn't like people lording anything over anybody else. So she's like, you know what, F it. I'm leaving it in. I'm sorry to anybody who was hoarding these. And that was one of the big proponents too, right? So there's this thing called the Mana Stone. And in classic zones, but not the raids, it allows you to instantly click with no cast time. You turn 60 life into 60 mana. It's life tap for anybody with mana. Incredibly powerful. So powerful for healers. Especially clerics, because once they get complete heal, there's a point where they can get infinite mana out of it. Well, that was supposed to stop dropping like 30 days into the live server. And she told us that, you know, that'll go away on the 1st. That's 3 months in. That's how Classic did it. It dropped for 3 months, then it didn't drop at all. She found out that there was a guild that had hundreds of these things. Because they were going to remain essentially BOE. You know, they were going to remain tradable. So there were people with hundreds of these, maybe thousands collectively throughout a single guild. And they were going to corner the market. They were going to destroy the economy with these things. So Secret said, F that. It's in forever. I hope I ruined all of your plans. A lot of people from that guild quit. Which is great, because we didn't want them here anyway. It's just multiple different mindsets. There are people who came into this who wanted to ruin the fun for others with loot denial and shit like that. And she was having freaking none of it. And yeah, like you said, I love that. That's what swayed me from being semi-casual in this to really getting into it. Here's our first sister. So we are fortunate enough tonight with all these damn fairies that she's not DTing. She's only doing the initial DT, not the in battle. She's not living more than 35 seconds at a time. That's beautiful. This is the stuff legends are made out of. Now a guild with 70 people can do that without an afterthought. But for someone as small as us, 40 people is about as big as we've ever been. And our DPS is so good because of the Thunder Spirit. Yeah, so this is us. This is the fun stuff. The Eye of Vishan is on that island over there. You can actually see the boss up there on that big windmill. She's a puppy compared to the bee. Oh yeah, I mean, there's plenty of guides. Like, so the P99 wiki is still a really good source of information, but it's not one for one, and that's a big mistake a lot of people make. There's lots of stuff on P99 that doesn't work the same here. But I'm willing to provide whatever information you could ask for, because I've probably asked that question myself to somebody. I've got a lot of favorite tabs with tons of stuff. Best in slot guides, leveling guide, you name it. Insanity that we're killing her before her real death touch. bet you I'm still taking one. I'm definitely taking one. Just not, maybe not this next one, but... These sisters, they harm touch too, which is different from death touch. So we send the pets in first, they'll eat the harm touch, which is just a big nuke. Instant nuke. She can only do it once. And then she'll do a real death touch. Like the person who pulled her out of her building eats the real death touch. Then we pull down, soak the harm touch with a pet. Preferably not our fairies because they're the MVPs. And then she can't get a real death touch off. Or a second. It gets to the point where our healers and casters, they get on low mana. Instead of waiting forever to get their mana back, they'll just run up there and take the next death touch so that we can keep the chain going. Ooh, nice. One thing they never tell you when you start your first melee tune, is that there's collision detection between the characters, and our fat meatballs get in the way. Melee range is not very big, and I can't slice through our meatball. But you gotta love these big boys. Iconic, love it. We don't have any trolls tonight. Our main tank, EB, he's not here tonight. He's a troll Shadow Knight. My baby just woke up in amazement because she fell asleep with Pokemon socks on. She just remembered. She woke up and she said, "Pikachu!" The fun part was not her waking up. It was going to bed, yelling at the socks, and having a crying fit because they're adult socks and they wouldn't fit on her feet. I have no idea how many sisters we've killed so far. 1, 2, 3, 4 corpses. 5 corpses, so this is sister number 6. Oh, she's got some kind of clawed weapon. She's not holding it right, but that's early dev for you. As long as it sticks in the hand, it's fine. even holding the two-handed sword upside down. Oh, I just caught a huge AoE. Time to welfare, heal myself back to victory. I don't know who else is lurking besides... Well, you're not lurking, you're the one actively having a conversation with me, but... See a couple viewers. I don't know if Jake's still around, but I certainly appreciate it, even if they don't say anything. Watching me play this very old game. I think I'm going to like streaming on raid nights compared to just additional content. Although I'll probably stream my leveling journey in Kunark when that happens in July. And I will be leveling my XR early. Try to get it as high as I can to get it out of Kunark when I can get it out of Kunark. 30 days to do that. Got a name planned for him and everything. And of course all the gear that I've thrown money at the wall. Even though Necros don't need a lick of it. Oh, for sure. I'll chime in. This is kind of my thing now. I mean, I don't know as much as anybody else who's played this game. Like, especially the old-timers in my game. But it's so cool to pass on at least whatever little knowledge I can. And I just enjoy watching it. Like I said, I watch a ton of VODs from people who stream. And then there's people who don't stream who just do YouTube content across P99, Quarm. I just love it. Sam's excited. She's going to try to get into it over the summer when she doesn't have to worry about getting Amber to school. She's not doing a summer school thing. She is doing a summer homework program to keep her having a sharp edge. But other than that, I don't think we're doing any after school or anything this summer. She's just going to learn how to swim and be a kid. So Sam was like, I'm interested. See if I can get into this because right now the baby won't let her play. And she wants to play a cleric really badly because she's just always been a healer. And my guild takes care of clerics. They're the kings and queens of the game. You don't ever have to worry about finding a party if you're a cleric. You are the party. But if you don't like healing, you're not going to have a good time. No, mages don't need to worry about parties. When mages party, they're just feeling lazy. They can kill faster than a group can if there's no mages in that group. They can do it more efficiently, you get more experience, you get more loot, but you're lonely. So if you don't want to be lonely, you can join a group, and that group would love you forever, because you've just become, a howitzer for them. No one's ever going to turn down a mage, as far as DPS goes. They're the kings. I mean, the only time I can see you being turned down is if there's an enchanter. Those will always be picked over mages, just because of what they can do. But if you get a mage and an enchanter, oh boy. You're all set. In fact, avoiding melee is probably the best thing you can do in this game, besides a tank. The melee are just awful in Classic. Rogues don't even work right on this server, technically. Classically, they were able to, when they sneak and hide, they can move. Other classes can't do that when they do both of those. So it's like the rogue invisibility. And it worked on everything, including undead. Well, here it doesn't. There's lots of mobs that can see through. So it doesn't work technically the same. So even hiring a rogue to go retrieve your corpse, which was a classic thing to do, it doesn't work that way. They can't sneak through the same zones that they used to be able to 25 years ago. So what you do is you just hire a warlock to summon your corpse. It'll cost you 200 plat, but it can be done much easier. You don't gotta go find it, you don't gotta drag it. And that's only like worst case scenario. In normal times, if you're with a party or something like that, they'll drag your corpse to the zone line, put you in a safe spot. Look at all these dead bosses that we're going to have to distribute loot from. I'm so glad I'm done with loot here. Wonder how many Adrians are going to drop. I think it's called something barb. Circlet of barbs. This is going to be our last sister, because we're out of time. This will be our 12th sister. I think that's the most sisters that we've ever done. 12 sisters at the same time, man. That's what my guild's saying right now. The stuff legends are made out of. Reminds me of the Office Space movie. He's like, what would you do if you had $1 million? He's like, I'll tell you what I'd do with $1 million, man. 2 chicks at the same time. Like, it's the most simple request. Dude, what would you do if you had $1 million? This is not even remotely the same thing. Now, I know it's hard to see because I blur my chat as per my guild's requests, but all that purple is each item. We just got over a dozen items, well over a dozen. Probably gonna have like something close to 20 raid loot for that work that we just did. That 22 minutes of basically power hour, sister pumping, and this is all primo stuff. Literally, these are most people's endgame weapons or iconic class-defining weapons from Classic. And of course, as is tradition in Savage, we only get Shadow Knight and Necro gear. No, I don't. I have my sword from this boss. I was one of the first people to get it. Paid through the nose in DKP for it, and now we're giving them to alts. But it is what it is. It's still coming. The loot is still coming. Ridiculous. I'm done. Like, I only needed one thing off the B. I don't need anything from the preceding bosses. Like I said to you privately before, I'm just here for DKP. Stocking up for Kunart. Because we're not doing a purge. You walk into the expansion with as much as you earn. There's no reset. There are technically the earring from the B, it's a side grade, so it's not even an upgrade, so I'm technically BIS. And then there's an item from Fear, called the Amulet of Necropotence. I think I mentioned that before. Turns you into a skeleton. It's really cool. But we need 5 of those to drop before they come off of Loot Council. We've only had 2. So until 3 more drop, I can't touch them. I can't look at them. I'm not in the bidding for those. No one's going to Loot Council me that. It's for tanks. And if that sounds silly, because why would a vanity item be Loot Council? It's because it gives you a buff. It's not a buff that's a statistical buff, but it puts a buff on your buff bar. It doesn't need to give you any statistical advantage. There are bosses that purge buffs, so we call them junk buffs. You can click that instantly, no cast time, and get that buff back in your number 1 buff slot every time a boss clears it, so they can't touch your important buffs. So it's really important for tanks to get it, because if you have tanks that
bosses ripping HP buffs off of tanks, you're gonna wipe, it's gonna be bad time. That's the only reason why we do it that way. Now, if I was like hyper rich, I could probably buy one off of the open market on the server, since everybody else is doing instances. There are stuff for sale. Some of the best items in the game are up for sale right now, but it's for absurd amounts of platinum, like 40,000 for some items, and that would take a bard kiting giants 24/7. That would take them a week or two to get that kind of platinum. It can be done. I think when Secrets was doing one of her streams, she looked into the code to see the players with the 10 players. She made a Fortune 500 list. She didn't publish the names, but she showed the platinum on the 10 highest platinum owners on the server. And the difference between spot 1 and spot 2 was staggering. It was like the highest person had well over like 100,000 platinum. And the second person was like maybe 20. So I just assumed that the one person who had the most was a guild bank from a very big guild selling tons and tons of loot. And this stuff is sold and purchased like all the time. I was expecting this raid to go 2 a.m., but we're going to be done in a few minutes. We got one boss left. It's the Eye. It's the very last boss. None of these dragons are KOS. None of it is. Now, if an enchanter pet breaks right in front of one, they will murder everything inside. Apparently they were doing one more sister. The one that was off the time. So 13 sisters, and I'm an idiot and went up to the last island, so I will not be participating. But again, not a big deal. My guild doesn't care. 39 other people are working down there. And I'm an idiot staring at the last boss. A very dumb fairy dragon. Of all of that raid gear that dropped, the highest bid on any of those items was 4 DKV, which you get in 2 hours of raiding. We're so decked out. Being a smaller guild, less loot needs to be distributed. We're just so decked. It's crazy. We still have 2 more months of this. 2.5 more months of this. And we're done. I can understand why everybody's so antsy to get into Kunar. My bad. It was 12 sisters, not 13. I thought it was 13 sisters, but it's 12. They just counted all the corpses. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? I'm honestly worried about Kunark hitting because finding the time to level, my guild leader wanting to hit the ground running, we're going to be raiding on the very first day. And we'll all be 50, 51 in a 60 in a level 60 raid. It's very doable, but I wish they would have given us like a week or two off to cap. It's optional though, so I could just refute it and go level, but it would be with strangers. I was kind of wanting to do it with my guild. I don't know what they're planning on doing, and they're going to be going so hard after raids, and it's too late for me to raid, or it's too late for me to play after raid. So Monday through Thursday, I'm not even going to be able to level. And I didn't take time off. I'm not that hardcore. Got to distribute all that millions of pieces of loot. And then we'll pop this eye of Ishan. And that is Sky. And like I said, there's two optional bosses. They're genies. Or djinns, or whatever you want to call them, djinns. The Afridi Lords. They technically are the hardest bosses in here, but they don't drop any special loot. It's the same loot that the guy on Island 1.5 drops, just in more bulk. And we do not need any of it. Although, at one point we'll probably kill those guys before Classic ends just to say we did, because it's a badge of honor. We've killed two of the three. We've not killed the last one, who spawns up here. Probably going to eat a death touch on this boss, so I'm not even going to attempt to rebuff or get new buffs out.
It's always hurry up and wait. This has been like the most boring part of the night. Just waiting for this boss. I thought B would be more boring, but we burnt through that pretty quick. Yeah, it's cool. It's blown up though. So that model, like the actual mobs in game that share that model, they're the size of like a character's head. You gotta zoom in super like all the way to see it in detail. But it does okay for blown up. And away we go. I probably will eat this DT if they call for it. That's just a ranger doing their job. Now we're talking. Someone just bid 230 DKP to make a rogue dagger. You can tell it hasn't dropped a lot. So the item that dropped turns into this dagger, which is just an insane dagger. This rivals their epic, and you can use it with the epic. Has a proc to hit rampage, tons of stats, tons of damage for a rogue. This thing will get you in trouble with backstab. This will be our second Thorn Stinger. And the rogue that does have it, actually I think they're saying that we have 2 in the guild. This will be our 3rd. Our rogues just rip and die with this thing all the time. So at this point in time, we're killing all the enchanter pets because they put valuable items on them. And they want their items back. Unlike a necro pet or a mage pet, your pet dies, that loot, whatever loot was on it, goes away. But not enchanters because they're real NPC. So they just traded items to these guys. For the past 3 hours, these guys have held them. And now they're killing them to get it back. Otherwise, lots and lots of platinum goes in the pooper. It's right down the drain. I mean, like I said, one guy puts like a haste belt on his. Probably puts 4,000 or 5,000 platinum worth of gear on these things. Pretty good raid night when I only lose 2% total EXP. Could have been a lot more, but we had plenty of rangers tonight. Well, mages are the class that summon weapons. So you're making your own pet toys for yourself anyway. Really, really good gear that you don't care if poofs goes away. Because it's worthless to you, but it's amazing for your pet. You get the best of both worlds. You don't ever have to worry about your pet needing good gear because you create it. I think later, I don't remember what expansion it is, but you get an actual inventory screen for your pet. So you can, and the items will save with your pet. And then there's also stuff like your pet doesn't poof and go away when you zone. It just, you can put it in stasis. And then later the stasis thing goes away and it just comes with you no matter what. But it's all at different eras, and I don't remember which one we'll actually see here on Quarm. I don't think we're going to see the pet inventory screen. But it doesn't, like I said, if you want to play a mage, it's not going to matter. Because you're already creating the best summon swords and summon staves, all that good stuff. And it's not just like this basic crappy staff. They have procs on them. This is stuff that players want to use. They ask you to summon this stuff when they don't have like the best gear in the game. Enchanters, they have to have an arsenal of real tangible items that are worth tons of platinum. And then they give it to a pet that could murder them with it. They'll always be better than summon stuff. But you're really crunching the numbers at that point. An enchanter pet will be better than your pet with no gear, with your pet having the best summon gear. because it's an enchanter and their pets are broken. Because like I said, their stats don't get debuffed. If they're taming a level 50 creature, it's got level 50 stats, including the health pool of a level 50 mob, including the raw damage of a level 50 mob. It's insane. Realistically speaking, I would say that an enchanter pet is probably 25 to like 30% better than a mage pet, right off the hop. But then they can give them the best items in the game and make it that much more threatening with like haste. They can cast haste on them and then give them like a flowing black silk sash, which is like a 4,000 platinum belt, maybe like 3,000 now. But it gives them like another 22% haste because you can have worn and casted. So you have a level 50 mob that's not debuffed, that's close to the melee haste cap, just wrecking. There's no comparison. $12.30 full sky clear. 3.5 hours is insanity. We're pretty much done here. I'm gonna pop out, get myself set up for the next raid I'll be going to. I could jump and make it exciting for the stream, or I could just leave raid and hit one of my comrades and then it'll port me out. That sounds boring. I have my FPS set to 60. Maybe it's even higher than that, so you fall really, really slow. If you set it to 30, you fall like a rock. Which, there's benefits to both. Yeah. And check it out, because there's so many people who ported out, we're stuck in the sky. I could actually cast my levitation cloak if there's enough people and never have to touch the water. And when you fall out of sky, there's one rule: west is best. So you have no idea where the town is, it's always west here. I'm just going to go to the place where everybody else goes when they're done with stuff. The East Common Tunnels, where all of the trading is done. It's a great raid. We got some great gear. Now I think tomorrow is hate. I think I have to check the schedule. If it's fear, I'm streaming. If it's hate, I'm taking the night off. And then Wednesday is dragons plus Finny plus Hole. I'm definitely streaming that because there's just a lot of content to go through. I love Dragon Knight. Wednesday Dragon. It's a lot of travel between the world, but you get the guildies that just port you around. Just like the dragons, they're just a nice change of pace. This is where all the players hang out, trade, sell crap. It's actually laggy here because there's so many players here. This zone just eats it. Every time somebody buffs, adds information to the zone, just makes it that much slower. But if you want to buy stuff, you buy it here. It's going to be that way for a while until we get the Bazaar in Luckland. It was awesome to get the whole raid into one stream. I was expecting to go to like 2 a.m. But I'll take 12:30 all day long. It's enough time for me to like hang out with the baby, eat something if I want to, watch a little TV. So I am going to end it here. Micro, thanks for hanging out this entire time. And whoever else was still here, if Jake's around, I appreciate it. I see one other person. If not, if it's just a random lurker, appreciate you guys stopping by. I'll be raiding more this week. Chime in around 9:30 p.m. Eastern till about 1 or 2 a.m. Eastern. If you want to check out some more classic EverQuest raids, I'll be displaying pretty much all of them besides Hate, unless I'm just bored that night and I show up for it. So you all take care, and you have a wonderful night, and I'm out of here.